For time without end, humankind has been fascinated by the deep blue sea and its creatures. The ancient Greeks worshipped Poseidon, god of the ocean, and told the tale of how the god Dionysus turned pirates into their first dolphins. Later, sailors on long sea voyages brought back stories of mermaids, half woman, half fish. Yet another race of sea dwellers told of in the north of Europe were the Selkies. These mysterious seal people formed the core of a series of myths, and Selkies still appear in many stories today. These creatures of Faroese, Icelandic, Irish, and Scottish legends take their name from the Scots word selch, or seal, and share similar features with the gentle beasts. Selkies take on two forms, both human and seal. As humans, the creatures have dark hair and eyes, and, in some tales, webbed fingers and toes. These, however, don't detract from their amazing beauty, which entrances many a mortal. Selkies change between their seal and human forms by wearing or shedding a sealskin cloak, which they must keep with them at all times. Changing into humans every so often, they prefer to spend their days as seals cavorting in the ocean. Various sources and folklore tell different versions of the first Selkies' origins, as wildly differing as, on the one hand, royal siblings cursed by their stepmother to long for the sea while they were on land and to long for the land while they were in the sea, or, on the other hand, some say they were the Egyptian armies who drowned in the Red Sea while pursuing the Israelites during the Exodus of the Bible. However the Selkies came to be, though, the stories surrounding them have come down to us in a few often repeated forms. One story, Gioga's Son, tells of a group of seal hunters who attack their prey sunning on a rocky island, in the hopes of thinning them out so the men's fish catches will not be stolen. The hunters knock the seals unconscious and then skin them. As the Selkies awake, they find themselves in their human form, minus their cloaks. The sea suddenly surges in response to the attack, and all but one of the hunters take to their boats and sail away quickly. Trapped behind with the cloakless Selkies, the remaining hunter despairs of rescue. But then an uninjured Selkie in seal form bobs up in the waves. She offers to swim him home if he retrieves a sealskin that the hunter stole from her son, one of the Selkies trapped on the rock with him. Of course he agrees and retrieves the skin. This tale simultaneously connects the sea to the Selkies on a physical level, as it responds to their injury by driving off their attackers, and also viscerally highlights the unusual ambiguity of the Selkies' true nature. Are they humans who shapeshift into seals? Seals who can take on human form? Or perhaps theirs is a mysterious nature all of their own. This duality increases the Selkies' enchantment, especially when considered alongside the concept of liminality, the in-between, not quite one or the other, familiar and unfamiliar coexisting. Even the shore itself, where the ocean and land meet in an ever-shifting line, and where human and Selkie first meet, is a liminal space. In another legend, by far the most well-known and written about, a mortal man wandering the shore at twilight, a liminal time, neither day nor night, happens to glimpse a beautiful Selkie woman dancing in her human form on the shore. He rushes forward to seize her sealskin cloak, lying on a rock nearby, as he is entranced with her beauty. Frightened, she pleads for her cloak, for without it she can't return to her home in the sea, but the man is firm that she will stay on land and be his wife. Marrying her, he hides her cloak away in his cottage, and for several years the couple stays together, bearing several children, who, depending on the teller of the story, may or may not have slightly webbed hands and feet. Despite the relative peace of her life, the Selkie bride always longs to return to the sea. At last her wish is granted one day, as her husband is away fishing, or as most of her family goes to church on a holiday. Her unwitting youngest daughter, or perhaps a precocious son, discovers the cloak buried in a chest or tucked above a rafter, and asks their mother what it is. Bidding a hasty farewell to the child, she grabs the cloak and runs to the ocean, wrapping the skin around her shoulders as she goes. Without a backward glance, she slides into the water, home at last. Sometimes the tale describes her watching over her children from the sea, or bringing the family fish to eat, but ultimately she has returned to the sea for good. This story is often the one that has entered into discourse the most, with many poems and stories, and perhaps the most famous Selkie-inspired media, the film The Secret of Rowan Inish, revolving around the experience of the Selkie bride. Does she ever find any degree of happiness in the life that was forced upon her? How does she perceive her children, born of two worlds? Can she love the man, no matter how kind now, who traps her here? And when she returns to the sea, how has she been changed? One such poem dwelling on these themes is Casey Druid's The Selkie Returns to the Sea. I used to think my longing had an end. I dreamed the sea so many years the sea became a dream. Now I search its swells for anything to pin me down. Fishing boat, buoy, whip of kelp, even waves that vanish too fast, leave silence in the spaces between. On land my kitchen harbored smallness, sweet oatcakes, my children's silky heads. When I return to them next spring, on the flood tide's 7th day, I'll touch my mouth to the house's wall, a baby learning the world with her tongue. Stone and salt, the garden leaning into bloom, my sealskin just another dyeing I've put on. Druid's Selkie woman finds she has grown accustomed to the stability of life on land, and though the sea is her infinitely large home and she is free to roam its depths, she looks forward to revisiting the walls of her little cottage once more. She calls her sealskin just another dyeing and says she will return in spring, when the garden is blooming back to life. It's left to the reader to infer whether this attachment to the land is a positive or a negative change. Yet other traditions center around Selkie men. They may walk on land more freely, and are as enchanting to unhappy human women, both married and unmarried, as the Selkie women are to human men. These Selkies can also be summoned. If a mortal woman longs for love, she only has to shed 7 tears into the ocean, and her Selkie lover will appear. But the woman must be careful. Once a Selkie meets her, this particular tradition says she will not see him again for 7 years. Perhaps the most famous story in this line is the ballad of the great Selkie of Selkie.
An earthly Narrations sits and sings, and she sings by lily wing. Little can I my bairnie's father, far less the land that he bides in. It begins with a young woman who's lulling her baby to sleep in his crib. She doesn't know who the father is of the baby, and she doesn't know where he comes from. And then at that point, a Selkie man comes into the room and declares that he is the father of this child, that he is a man, that he is a Selkie at the same time, and that he lives in Selkie. And when he takes the child away to Selkie with him, he shows her a gold chain and says that he would put this gold chain on her son, and says that she'll recognise him because he'll have this round his neck.
The Selkie then prophesies that the woman will remarry. Her husband will be a hunter, and one day he'll return from seal hunting with a gold chain.
And she recognises the gold chain and knows that her son has been shot.
So it's not the most cheerful of songs.
No, it's a very melancholy song. I mean, the melody too is a very melancholy melody. I am a man upon the land. I am a Selkie on the sea. And when I'm far and far fae land, my hame it is in Selkie.
In recent times, films like Song of the Sea and writers such as Jane Yolen or Sheila McGill-Callahan have created their own Selkie stories that have begun to enter the body of mythology spun around these creatures. Yolen even stated that her book Grayling had been read over the BBC as a folktale from the Shetland Islands, though it was her own original story. McGill-Callahan's picture book, The Seal Prince, purports to retell a Selkie story passed down from the author's father that she says exists in many versions, but that book is the only place I've ever found the story, which was my introduction to Selkies as a kid. Though perhaps not all Selkie stories have quite such a happily ever after ending between a human and a Selkie as that one did. It sparked my fascination with their mythology, which in turn led to my fascination with the ocean, the awe and wonder it inspires, its blend of beauty and danger, and what mysteries might lie just beneath the surface.